Hello everybody, I'm Brian and I'm going to be reviewing this novel. Now, this novel is called Inferno, written by Dan Brown, which is this guy. He has written many other very interesting books, including the Robert Langdon series, Angels and Demons in 2000s, The Da Vinci Code in 2003, The Lost Symbol in 2009, Inferno in 2013, the book I'll be reviewing, and Origin in 2017. Today I'll be reviewing Inferno by Dan Brown. The novel follows the story of Robert Langdon, a middle-aged man around his 50s. He's a Harvard University professor teaching symbology and art history. He's very successful in his life with his curious, persistent, and ambitious traits. He mentioned about his father and great-grandfather, but sadly, both are deceased. So what happened in this book is, Langdon wakes up in an Italian hospital with no memory of the events that led him to be in Italy. Soon, he realizes that someone is trying to kill him. Langdon travels from Florence to Venice and Istanbul with Dr. Sienna Brooks to prevent a biological attack by looking for a deadly virus that was planted by a client of a shadowy consulting group called the Consortium. In the course of this, Langdon must decipher clues employing allusions to the works of Sandro Botticelli, Giorgio Vasari, and Dante Alighieri, the writer of Inferno, the first chapter of the epic poem, The Divine Comedy, around which much of the plot revolves. I'll read a passage to give you an example of this book. Legend proclaims that it is physically impossible upon entering the baptistry of San Giovanni not to look up. Langdon, despite having been in this room many times, now felt the mystical pull of the space, and let his gaze climb skyward towards the ceiling. High and high overhead, the surface of the baptistry octagonal vault spanned more than 80 feet from side to side. It glistened and shimmered as if it were made of smoldering coals. A burnished amber gold surface reflected the ambient light unevenly from more than 1,000,000 multi-tiles. Tiny ungrouted mosaic pieces had cut from a glassy silica glaze, which were arranged in 6 concentric rings in which scenes from the Bible were depicted. Adding stark drama to the lustrous upper portion of the room, natural light pierced the dark space through a central oculus, much like the one in Rome's Pantheon, assisted by a series of high, small, deeply recessed windows that threw shafts of illumination that were so focused and tight that they seemed almost solid, like structural beams propped at ever-changing angles. As Langdon walked with Sienna deeper into the room, she took in the legendary ceiling mosaic, a multi-tiered representation of heaven and hell, very much like the depiction of the Divine Comedy. Dante Alighieri saw this as a child, Langdon thought. Inspiration from above. Langdon fixed his gaze now on the centerpiece of the mosaic. Hovering directly above the main altar rose a 27-foot-tall Jesus Christ, seated in judgment over the saved and the damned. At Jesus' right hand, the righteous received the reward of everlasting life. On his left hand, however, the sinful were stoned, roasted on spikes, eaten by all manner of creatures. Overseeing the torture was a colossal mosaic of Satan, portrayed as an infernal, man-eating beast. Langdon always flinched when he saw this figure, which more than 700 years ago had stared down at the young Dante Alighieri, terrifying him, and eventually inspiring his vivid portrayal of what lurked in the final ring of hell. I chose this passage to give you an insight into how detailed this book can be. Well, this is one page out of 461 pages total. It's obviously going to be more detailed and also interesting the deeper you get into this novel. The novel is extraordinary, and I enjoyed reading it. The immense details made it feel like I was there in the story. I underestimated the author's skill, and I appreciate this book immensely. I would definitely recommend you guys to read this book. It's a great read. It might take a while to finish it, but it's worth it. Trust me. Other than that, this is it of my book review on Inferno by Dan Brown. It's a cool book. I encourage you to read it and take a look at it. I'll see you then. Goodbye.